I'm standing outside my own house in the pouring rain, soaked to the bone. My key doesn't work anymore. Marcus changed the locks without telling me. I knocked twice, then pounded on the door. Finally, he swung it open, eyes blazing with anger. "A real wife knows her place," he screamed, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. I felt my stomach twist, humiliation burning my cheeks. This wasn't the first time he'd punished me for questioning him. But tonight felt different. Tonight something inside me snapped. I turned away from the door, rain streaming down my face. Mixing with tears, I refused to let him see. As I walked down the driveway, I whispered to myself, "It ends tonight." My hand slipped into my pocket, fingers wrapping around my phone. I hit record. From this moment forward, every single thing Marcus said or did would be documented. He thought he'd broken me. He had no idea what was coming. The rain wasn't the first storm I'd weathered with Marcus. Our marriage had been a slow descent into control. At first, it was subtle, checking my phone while I showered, asking who I'd been texting. Then it escalated. He demanded access to all my accounts, insisted on approving my work outfits, and slowly cut me off from my friends. "They're not good for you," he'd say with that fake concern. My friend Brianna tried to warn me early on. "That's not normal, Janelle," she'd whispered over coffee one afternoon. But I defended him, made excuses, convinced myself he just loved me deeply. Now, sitting in my car in a grocery store parking lot, clothes dripping wet, I finally saw the truth. This wasn't love. This was ownership. I scrolled through my phone, finding a folder I'd never noticed before. The title made my blood run cold. "House Rules for Janelle." My hands trembled as I opened it. The folder contained a document. Typed, formatted, printed. Marcus had actually written rules for me. Rule number 1. Janelle will notify Marcus of all purchases over $20. Rule number 4. Janelle will be home by 6 p.m. unless given permission. Rule number 9 made me want to throw up. Janelle will not question Marcus's decisions regarding household finances. I read through all 15 rules, each one more controlling than the last. But what broke me were the screenshots tucked at the bottom of the folder. Text messages between Marcus and 2 different women. Flirty messages, explicit messages, plans to meet at hotels. My vision blurred with tears, but I forced myself to keep reading. One message jumped out. "Once I get rid of her money, she'll have no choice but to stay." So that's what this was about. Control and theft. I took screenshots of everything, my hands shaking with rage. The next morning, I dragged myself to the bank. My head pounded from crying all night in a motel room. I logged into my account, praying Marcus hadn't touched it yet. My heart sank. My savings account, 5 years of careful budgeting and saving, showed a balance of $43. $50,000 gone. I rushed to the counter, demanding to speak with a manager. A kind woman named Patricia pulled up my records, her face growing concerned. "Mrs. Carter, these withdrawals were authorized by the primary account holder." My voice cracked. "I'm the primary account holder. This is my account." Patricia scrolled through the screen, then looked up with pity in her eyes. "According to our records, Marcus Carter is listed as primary. You're secondary." I couldn't breathe. When had that happened? Then I remembered last year when I'd had the flu. Marcus had insisted on helping with our banking. He must have changed everything then. I drove home that afternoon, my mind spinning with rage and disbelief. Marcus was already there, sitting on the couch like nothing had happened. "Where were you?" he demanded, not even looking up from his phone. I didn't answer. I walked straight to our bedroom and started searching. In his nightstand I found more proof. Receipts for hotels, expensive dinners I'd never been to, gifts I'd never received. Then he appeared in the doorway, his face twisted with anger. "What do you think you're doing?" he growled. I held up a receipt. "Spending my money on your girlfriends." His expression changed from anger to something darker. Calculation. He stepped toward me, snatched my phone from my hand, and threw it against the wall. shattered. "You don't get to question me," he hissed, shoving me backward. I stumbled, catching myself on the dresser. But my backup phone was recording from my jacket pocket. Every word, every threat. He had no idea. The next day, I sat across from Brianna at a quiet cafe downtown. She'd been my best friend since college and, conveniently, was now a lawyer specializing in family law. I showed her everything, the recordings, the screenshots, the bank statements. Her jaw tightened as she reviewed the evidence. "Janelle, this is financial abuse and fraud. You have a solid case." Tears streamed down my face. "He took everything, Bree. I have nothing." She reached across the table, gripping my hand. "That's not true. You have evidence, you have me, and you have rights. We can fight this." She pulled out her laptop and started taking notes. "First, we freeze his access. Then we go after every penny he stole." I felt a tiny spark of hope ignite in my chest. Brianna looked up, eyes fierce. "Are you ready to take back your life?" I wiped my tears and nodded. "Yes." Brianna helped me open a new bank account at a different institution. Over the next week, I quietly funneled small amounts of money from our joint household account. $20 here, $50 there. Nothing big enough to raise alarms, but enough to build an emergency fund. Marcus noticed the balance dropping slightly and confronted me one evening. "Why is there less money in the account?" Kept my voice steady. "Groceries are expensive. Gas prices went up." He studied my face, suspicious, but didn't push further. What he didn't know was that I'd also started documenting every single expense. Every dollar he spent on Tiffany, every lavish dinner, every hotel room. I tracked it all in a secret spreadsheet. One afternoon, I received an alert on my phone. Another large withdrawal from our joint account. Check the details. $2,000, withdrawn at an ATM near Tiffany's apartment. My hands clenched into fists. He was getting bolder. I followed the bank alerts like breadcrumbs, each one leading me closer to the truth. Marcus had been paying Tiffany's rent for over a year. $1,500 every month. My money funding his affair. I sat in my car outside her apartment building one evening, heart pounding. What was I hoping to find? Confirmation. Closure. Then I saw it. Through her ground floor window, a child's toy scattered on the floor. A high chair at the table. My breath caught in my throat. Tiffany had a child. Was it Marcus's? The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. The mysterious business trips. The extra expenses. His sudden interest in life insurance policies. He wasn't just having an affair. He was building a whole separate life. I drove home, hands trembling on the steering wheel. This was worse than I'd imagined. So much worse. The next blow came from an unexpected source. I was at work when a man in a suit approached my desk. Janelle Carter. My stomach dropped. "Yes." He handed me an envelope. "You're being served." Inside was a demand for $60,000. A business loan I'd never taken out. According to the documents, I was listed as the owner of Carter Consulting LLC. I'd never heard of it. I called Brianna immediately, my voice shaking. Marcus created a fake company in my name. She cursed under her breath. "That's identity theft. We need to report this right away." But the damage was already done. My credit score had tanked. Every credit card I tried to use was declined. That evening, when I checked my credit report, I found 3 more fraudulent accounts. All maxed out, all in my name. Marcus had systematically destroyed my financial life while building his escape plan with Tiffany. I felt sick, betrayed, furious. But mostly I felt determined. He would pay for this. Late one night, while Marcus was supposedly working late, I broke into his laptop. The password was easy. Our wedding anniversary. The one date he'd never forget because it marked the beginning of his control over me. What I found made my blood run cold. A draft will, dated 2 years ago, leaving everything to Tiffany Graves and my son Mason Carter. My vision blurred. Son. Marcus had a son with Tiffany, and he'd been planning to cut me out entirely. The will specified that upon his death or our divorce, all assets, including the house I'd helped pay for, would go to them. I sat frozen in our dark bedroom, laptop screen glowing, reality crashing down around me. This wasn't just about control anymore. This was about erasing me completely. I forwarded the document to my secure email address, then carefully cleared the browser history. Marcus thought he held all the cards. He was wrong. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a ghost in my own home. I documented everything. Photographs of receipts, recordings of his angry outbursts, screenshots of his messages with Tiffany. I stored everything in a cloud account he didn't know existed. Then Marcus dropped another bomb. "We're selling the house," he announced one evening over dinner. Not a discussion. Declaration. "What? Why?" I asked, keeping my voice calm even as panic surged through me. "I found a better investment opportunity. The realtor's coming tomorrow." My mind raced. If he sold the house, I'd have nowhere to go. But more importantly, I'd lose my share of the equity. Equity I'd contributed to for 8 years. That night I called Brianna. "He's trying to sell the house without my consent." She was quiet for a moment. "He can't do that legally. Both names are on the deed, right?" I checked the documents. My name was there but barely visible. Another thing he'd tried to minimize. "We need to act fast," Brianna said. "Trust me." I hired a private investigator. His name was Raymond, a retired police detective with sharp eyes and a calm demeanor. Within 3 days, he'd uncovered Marcus's entire plan. The house sale proceeds were meant to fund Marcus and Tiffany's new life together. He'd already put a down payment on a condo across town, near Tiffany's current apartment. Raymond showed me photographs. Marcus and Tiffany house hunting, Marcus carrying boxes into the new place, Marcus playing with a toddler in the park. The child had Marcus's eyes. My heart shattered all over again. But Raymond had captured something else. A voice recording from Tiffany's phone, obtained legally through a mutual friend she'd confided in. Tiffany's voice was clear. "Once she's out, you're mine." He promised me everything. I listened to it 3 times, each repetition hardening my resolve. They'd underestimated me. They were about to learn that was a fatal mistake. Brianna called me into her office on a Thursday afternoon. She had a stack of documents spread across her desk and a determined look in her eyes. "Because Marcus used your identity to create that fake business, you have legal grounds to freeze all associated accounts." My pulse quickened. "What does that mean?" She smiled. "It means we can lock him out of everything connected to that fraudulent company, including the accounts he's been funneling money through." She walked me through the process. We'd need to file identity theft reports, provide evidence to the banks, and get a court order. It would take time, but it would work. "Once we freeze those accounts," Brianna explained, "he'll lose access to roughly $200,000. I stared at her. $200,000. She nodded grimly. "He's been stealing from you for years, Janelle." My hands trembled as I signed the documents. "Ready to pull the plug?" Brianna asked. I met her eyes. "Yes." The court order came through on Monday morning. By noon, Marcus's accounts were frozen. I was in a coffee shop when I got Brianna's text. "It's done." My heart raced with a mixture of terror and exhilaration. An hour later, Marcus called. His voice tight with barely controlled rage. "What did you do?" Kept my tone innocent. "What do you mean?" "My accounts are frozen. My cards aren't working." "What did you do, Janelle?" I took a sip of my coffee, savoring the moment. "I have no idea what you're talking about, Marcus. Maybe you should call your bank." He hung up. That evening, I learned from Raymond's surveillance that Marcus had tried to use his card at a restaurant with Tiffany. Declined. He tried 3 different cards. All declined. The humiliation on his face, captured in Raymond's photos, was priceless. Tiffany had looked mortified, then angry. I smiled for the first time in weeks. The walls were closing in on him. Marcus came home that night like a tornado. He slammed the door so hard the pictures rattled on the walls. "You did this!" he screamed, advancing toward me. But I was ready. My phone was recording in my pocket, and I'd positioned myself near the door. "Did what, Marcus? I've been here all day." His face was purple with rage. "You froze my accounts. You're trying to ruin me." I stayed calm, my voice steady. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you stole $50,000 from me. Before you created fake companies in my name. Before you destroyed my credit." His eyes widened. The first flicker of realization that I knew everything. He took a step back, trying to regain control. "You can't prove anything." He smiled coldly. "Actually, I can." That's when his phone buzzed. A message notification lit up the screen. I caught a glimpse. "Your business account is under investigation for fraud." His face went white. For the first time in our marriage, Marcus looked genuinely afraid. Over the next few days, Marcus tried a different strategy. Manipulation. He started with apologies, claiming he'd made mistakes but still loved me. When that didn't work, he tried threats. "You'll lose everything in a divorce," he warned. But I'd already consulted with Brianna. With the evidence I'd gathered, I'd likely get more than half. Then came the guilt trips. "After everything I've done for you," he said one evening, his voice dripping with false sincerity. I almost laughed. What had he done for me? Controlled me, stolen from me, betrayed me. One afternoon, I guided our conversation carefully, asking questions I already knew the answers to. "Where did that $20,000 go last month?" He fumbled, making up a story about a business investment. I pressed further. He slipped, mentioning the company, the fraudulent one. My phone recorded every word. "Are you recording me?" he asked suddenly, eyes narrowing. I met his gaze steadily. "Why would I do that, Marcus?" But I was. And he just confessed to fraud. I'd been secretly planning my escape for weeks. With Brianna's help, I'd secured a serviced apartment across town, paid for with my newly protected funds. On a Tuesday morning, while Marcus was at work, I hired movers. They packed half the furniture, my clothes, my personal belongings, everything I could legally claim. By the time they were done, the house looked hollowed out. I left Marcus a note on the kitchen counter. "I know everything." Just 3 words, but they said it all. I knew about Tiffany, about Mason, about the stolen money, about the fake companies, about the will. Everything. I locked the door behind me and drove to my new apartment. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. My phone buzzed as I was unpacking. A voicemail from Marcus. "Janelle, what have you done? Where are you? We need to talk." I deleted it without listening to the whole thing. There was nothing left to say. Marcus's world collapsed quickly after that. With his accounts frozen and under investigation, he couldn't maintain his double life. The condo he'd put a down payment on fell through. Tiffany's rent went unpaid. Raymond's sources told me she'd started asking questions, demanding answers Marcus couldn't provide. Within a week, Tiffany ghosted him completely. She blocked his number, refused to answer her door, and apparently told her friends she'd been deceived by a con artist. The irony wasn't lost on me. Marcus had conned both of us, but at least Tiffany had the good sense to leave when the money dried up. I, on the other hand, had fought back. Meanwhile, Marcus's employer started asking questions about his expense reports. Turns out, many of his business trips were actually romantic getaways with Tiffany, charged to the company card. One by one, his lies unraveled. Then came the messages. "Please, Janelle. I'm begging you. Let's talk." I ignored them all. Marcus showed up at my new apartment on a Saturday morning. I watched him through the peephole, looking disheveled and desperate. He knocked softly at first, then harder. "Janelle, please. I just want to talk." I didn't open the door. "There's nothing to discuss, Marcus." His voice cracked. "I made mistakes. I know that. But we can fix this. We can start over." I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "You didn't make mistakes," I said through the door. "You made calculated choices. You stole from me. You betrayed me. You tried to erase me. He was quiet for a moment. I never meant to hurt you. But you did, I replied. And now you're facing the consequences. He left eventually, shoulders slumped. 2 days later, I received a court summons. Marcus was suing me, claiming I'd frozen his accounts illegally and demanding restitution. Brianna laughed when she saw it. He's desperate, she said. This won't go anywhere. Hope she was right. The courtroom was cold and intimidating, but I walked in with my head held high. Brianna was by my side, carrying 2 thick folders of evidence. Marcus sat at the opposite table with a lawyer who looked uncomfortable. The proceedings started, and Marcus's attorney presented his case, claiming I'd maliciously frozen accounts and stolen property. Then it was our turn. Brianna stood, poised and confident. Your Honor, we have extensive evidence showing that Mr. Carter engaged in identity theft, fraud, and financial abuse. She played the first recording. Marcus's voice filled the courtroom. Once I get rid of her money, she'll have no choice but to stay. The judge's expression darkened. We presented bank statements, the fraudulent business documents, the will leaving everything to Tiffany, and recordings of his threats. By the time we finished, Marcus looked sick. His lawyer whispered urgently to him. The judge reviewed the evidence, frowning deeply. Then he spoke. Mr. Carter, you're fortunate you're not facing criminal charges yet. The judge ruled in my favor on every count. Marcus was ordered to pay full restitution, $65,000 to cover what he'd stolen plus damages. The fraudulent accounts were closed, and my credit would be cleared. Additionally, the judge ordered a full investigation into Marcus's business practices. I walked out of the courthouse feeling lighter than I had in years. Brianna hugged me tightly. You did it, she whispered. But the consequences for Marcus didn't stop there. That same afternoon, his employer fired him. News of the court case had reached his boss, and they couldn't keep someone under investigation for fraud on their payroll. Marcus's reputation in the industry was destroyed. No one would hire him now. His LinkedIn profile went dark. His social media accounts disappeared. He'd gone from controlling every aspect of my life to having no control over his own. The poetic justice was almost too perfect. I received one final message from him. I hope you're happy. It was. The biggest surprise came from Tiffany. Apparently, once she realized Marcus had been lying to her too, about his finances, his marriage, his intentions, she'd started her own investigation. She discovered he'd promised her things he could never deliver, using money that wasn't his. Furious, Tiffany submitted evidence to the fraud investigation. She handed over text messages, financial records, even a recording of Marcus promising to take care of everything once he'd dealt with me. Her testimony painted Marcus as a manipulative con artist who deceived multiple women. The investigator called me personally. Ms. Carter, Ms. Graves' evidence has been very helpful. This strengthens the case significantly. I felt an unexpected kinship with Tiffany. We'd both been Marcus's victims, just in different ways. Later that week, I received an email from Marcus. Please, I'm begging you. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. I forwarded it directly to the investigator. It was the final nail in his coffin. The investigator reviewed Marcus's desperate email and called me in for a final statement. Ms. Carter, this email demonstrates consciousness of guilt. Combined with everything else, we have more than enough to recommend charges. I nodded, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. This was really over. Marcus would face legal consequences for his actions. Within days, the district attorney's office contacted me. They were building a case for fraud, identity theft, and financial abuse. My evidence had made it simple. I provided my full testimony, walking them through years of control and manipulation. By the end, even the hardened prosecutor looked sympathetic. You've been incredibly strong through this, she said. A week later, formal charges were filed. Marcus was arrested at his new apartment, a tiny studio he could barely afford. I wasn't there to see it, but Raymond sent me a brief text. It's done. I sat in my cozy apartment, sipping tea, feeling truly free for the first time in nearly a decade. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. I got the house. Marcus's half was seized as part of the restitution. I got my savings back, plus damages. I got my credit cleared. Got my life back. Marcus lost everything. His job, his reputation, his home, his relationship with Tiffany, and eventually his freedom when he was sentenced to 2 years for fraud. Standing in the empty house that had once been our shared prison, I felt overwhelming relief. Brianna helped me redecorate, erasing every trace of Marcus's presence. We painted the walls bright colors, bought new furniture, filled the space with light and joy. My credit was restored. My bank accounts were secure. My identity was mine again. One afternoon, I received a letter from the court. It was the final decree, officially ending my marriage to Marcus Carter. I held it in my hands, tears streaming down my face. Not from sadness, but from pure, overwhelming relief. I was free. Completely, utterly free. Today, I'm standing in the kitchen of my home. Not our home, but my home. The locks are changed, the security system is new. And every corner reflects my taste, my choices, my freedom. I look around at the bright walls, the comfortable furniture, the photographs of friends and family who supported me through the darkest time of my life. My phone buzzes. It's a text from Brianna. Dinner tonight? Celebrating your new beginning. I smile, typing back. Absolutely. As I lock the door to head out, I pause for just a moment. I think about the woman I was. Scared, controlled, trapped. And I think about the woman I am now, strong, independent, free. I whisper to the empty hallway, knowing Marcus will never hear but needing to say it anyway. You'll never control me again. Then I step outside into the sunshine, closing the door firmly behind me. This chapter of my life is over. And the next one. It's all mine. Every single page.